Good morning to one and all present here. We will start with the session shortly. Before beginning, we would like to thank our sponsor, React Waste Tech. With the world population not getting any lesser, the waste generation isn't either, with plastic waste at the leading node. At React Waste Tech, plastic waste is recycled into useful products, two birds with one stone. The waste management system in India is unorganized, which is where React Waste Tech steps in. The model of functioning is a transparent one. They collect plastic of any kind and also recycle it. Join hands with them by giving your reaction to the initiative. Recycle for the lifestyle. Good afternoon, sir and ma'am. Sir, could you please turn on your video? Good morning, Father Principal, Father Vice Principal, our distinguished speaker, Dr. Amruta Joshi, our moderator for the day, Mr. Michael Wharton, members of the advisory committee, faculty members, and all the students of St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. We warmly welcome you to the speaker session of Xavier's Management Society's Inter-College Oratory event, X-Confero'23. X-Confero is an event that witnesses participation from various colleges throughout the country. This year, the event was organized offline on campus. X-Confero offers students an engaging and motivating environment that inspires them to be the best version of themselves. It is an open platform available to all the undergraduate students in India who want to develop their public speaking, communication, and leadership skills. This year, the 3-day event was planned with the idea of teaching students the effective art of communication, which is a crucial non-technical skill that every leader should possess. Now, I would like to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Amruta Joshi. Dr. Amruta Joshi is a technology executive with over 15 years' experience in data analytics and artificial intelligence. She is currently the Global Director for Data and AI Solutions for Google Cloud, advising Fortune 500 and startup companies to transform their business through cloud technology and AI-focused innovation. She also serves in an advisory role at Google for startups and startups for sustainability. Dr. Joshi has worked in various leadership roles in product management, partnerships, research, and engineering. She was formerly leading the America's Best organization for Google's ad publishers, managing a multi-billion-dollar internet advertising platform. Her global experience includes living and working in the US and India, and she has managed US and Asia Pacific focused businesses. Dr. Joshi earned a master's degree in computer science from Stanford University and a PhD from UCLA, specializing in information retrieval. She has several patents and publications to her credit and has served a program committee member and reviewer at a top-tier international computer science conference, including Association for Computing Machinery, a very large databases endowment, International Worldwide Web Conference Committee, International Conference on Data Engineering, and Conference on Knowledge Discovery and Data Mining. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator for the day, Mr. Michael Wharton. Mr. Wharton is an admissions consultant at EduAIMS, guiding students to top global business schools and universities. Mr. Wharton is an alumnus of our very own St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, as well as IIT Madras and Cornell University. With several years of experience in education and consulting industries, he helps individuals realize their dream universities and get recruited at top companies. I would now like to hand over the session to you, ma'am and sir, to take it forward.
Thank you, Kovic, for that wonderful and more than generous, more than kind introduction. Good morning, everyone, respected dignitaries, teachers, students, Dr. Amruta, everyone else. Today we have an honorable guest amongst us. Firstly, I would like to start off by congratulating the students of the Xavier's Management Society for carrying out such a scintillating event and providing the platform, so that people can come together, people can attend this particular session. I think you guys definitely deserve, all the praise and a shout out in that perspective, so that's the first thing that I'll do. And definitely the whole of St. Xavier's College, the administration, again, for, time and again, I've myself, moderated a few events in the past, and time again, calling such revered individuals to share their experiences, share their inspirations, and of course, pass on so much of knowledge. And I'm particularly excited, about today's session because the session that we have today, the topic that we have today, when we're going to talk about AI transforming the world. And I know that the topic, I remember seeing the topic as AI transforming the corporate world, but I think we can sort of make it a little more generic, and talk about AI transforming the world itself. And with the buzz that has been online, with people trying out different kinds of the AI, generative AI tools that are there, with myself, having started using AI like a virtual assistant and always having it opened in a tab or the other on my laptop. I think the world's going through a transformation. At this point of time, discussing or having dialogues about this transformation is paramount, because we are all pushing the growth forward, and we are all in a way responsible for the direction that we take things forward from an ethical point of view, from I would say a standard documenting point of view, or it could be just from a power point of view, how things are used. So without any further ado, Dr. Amruta Joshi has been introduced. The first thing, I think, the first question, I mean, for the uninitiated, because I'm sure that there might be some folks maybe in the audience who are a little confused. Some people, when you think about AI, they immediately start thinking about something like a movie like Terminator, or, you go back to different images. So, Dr. Joshi, I think the first question that I would really like to ask you is, what would you define AI as, in terms of how things are evolving, just to make it a little clearer to the audience also, what is AI according to you?
So great question to start with. And Michael, as you mentioned, the topic of today cannot really be just AI transforming the corporate world. It is, in fact, going to transform our world in almost all sectors. So it should be AI transforming the world. Now, speaking of what I think AI is all about, AI is about understanding patterns and making decisions. Okay, so whenever we look at how computer technology has come along, initially you had people sitting with spreadsheets, or even with physical books documenting data, right? Then that data went online, and then or on computers, and there were more things that we could do with. But the decision making was still left to the person, right? We are now gradually moving towards a place where AI is able to take over some of that data analysis, business insights, and go ahead and make the decisions for us. The next step, of course, on top of the decision-making or predictive AI is the generative AI, which is not only making the decisions, but also creating entirely new content, new things for us. So I would say it is a very interesting point in the history of AI for us at this moment. And I do think very, very timely topic for the students.
Definitely. I like how you talk about predictive AI and generative AI. I think it gives very good context to a lot of the students present here, especially those uninitiated, because there's still so many people who haven't really explored, and there's so much of scope in asking and getting information. I'll just like to share a very interesting analogy that I got from an individual recently, and he spoke about how AI is sort of like a calculator for the world. So there was a pre-calculator era where accountants used to do a lot of things manually, and there is a post-calculator era where, of course, accountants haven't become redundant at all. That's another topic which we'll just touch upon a little bit later. But then it's going to be a great supplemental tool, with wonderful power. And from that perspective, since a lot of the audience over here happens to be students in their undergrad, in their first, second, third years, maybe going on to become, some professionals as well. One question that I've personally also got from some students is that how is AI going to change the future, or rather a question about the skills that will remain relevant and the skills that will end up becoming redundant, because students now, in the past, it was more about what do I like, what interests are there, what my passions are, how good am I in a subject. Now, when people are choosing careers, let's say somebody's going to become a lawyer, somebody's going to become a doctor, somebody's, whatever they're wanting to become, somebody's becoming a coder, for example. Then one more question has been added over there. It's like, how future-proof is my career? how, okay, so I'll get a degree, but will that degree still be valid in this era of AI? If you could just throw some light on how this kind of a situation should be tackled by some of these students.
Absolutely. So for the students that are graduating now or likely to graduate in the next couple of years, let me tell you that the world that you see today is going to be quite different from the world that you are going to create in the next 10, 20, 40 years. I assume you will have at least a 40-year-long career. So if you assume that whatever is your learning today is going to carry you through the next 40 years, my dear friends, you will be greatly mistaken. So really, the reason why you are learning here right now is you're learning to learn. Okay, you're learning to grow, you're learning to adapt. And I do know that the management school curriculum does put you through a lot of challenging, thought-provoking situations where there is no one correct answer, but figuring out what that next step is, figuring out how to learn, figuring out how to grow. I think that is going to be the most important skill. And that skill will definitely help you throughout your career, irrespective of whether you're doing technology or you're doing commerce or accounting, whatever that area is.
That's fantastic. I just love how you put it. You're learning, you need to learn how to learn. So there's so much about education which is centered around teaching content and teaching specific material or specific kinds of skills. But then the skill to pick up more skills or to know how to essentially go about navigating, there's so much of information online or reaching out to mentors and gaining those relevant skills for the future is probably the biggest takeaway, that these students can have from their education system. It's just so well put in over here. On that note, I mean, something that comes to my mind is AI could actually eventually end up being a double-edged sword as well. I was having a very interesting discussion with someone the other day, and they mentioned just like how now to stay physically fit, we go to gyms, we go for workouts, and essentially we do this because of our lifestyles. We're all working individuals, or in college also, these folks, they don't get time to exercise. We don't get time to exercise because technology has removed the need for physical activity to a great extent. So he was, sort of thinking out loud, and he was mentioning that AI will probably end up taking away the need to think mentally as well. And probably we might even have a future in the next 5 or 10 years where brain gyms, or sort of just like how we have physical gyms, technology takes away our ability to think. And then you have brain gyms, especially to make sure that you're thinking as well overall. So it's a double-edged sword. I mean, I just wanted your take on this. Do you think this is a possibility? How do students avoid a situation where, they have information? I can just type, okay, write a code on so and so, and it just generative AI sort of spits out the whole thing. You don't understand something, you just ask it again, it spits it out. So how do students navigate that kind of situation?
All right. So this is a very interesting analogy. I had not heard about this one, about brain gyms and taking away the ability to think. I sure hope that does not happen.
Yeah.
I would not take such a scary view of technology, or for that matter, any transformation. Okay. So I remember my grandparents saying, long back that, oh, these children, they don't know the tables of quarters and they don't know these tables. But frankly, that was not the skill that was necessarily needed for our generation. And similarly, the skills that we may worry about today may or may not be the skills that the next generation needs. That said, we have seen technological revolutions through the years, through centuries. And we have had people adapt, learn new skills, and take it from there. We've not really gone down a path of not needing to think or not needing to, not needing to, maybe the current set of thinking skills might be a little more dated, but there will be new sets of thinking, new sets of ways where we will still need to learn. Definitely. So one example that, we could talk about is, not even more recent, you could talk about the Industrial Revolution.
Mhm.
The Industrial Revolution was a huge milestone for humanity, where people, instead of physically working and making and manufacturing things, there were now entire assembly lines that could do the same work much faster, much more accurately. And that generation also went through that phase of, oh, it's doomsday, no more jobs, no more doing these things. But if you look at history and how things have come along, it has elevated everyone's lives to the next level. It has created new kinds of jobs, new kinds of opportunities. Economies have expanded after that. So, these kinds of transformations, though they seem a little scary at first, it can actually lead to much bigger opportunities, much better life for all of us. So I would not really take such a scary view, but be a little more open at the possibilities of what we all can do together with this kind of technology.
No, I think that's a great way to put it. And especially when you talk about the previous generations, we really learn a lot from history. In the past, I think when, let's say, in the evenings, young boys and girls, used to go out and play. Then parents used to complain that, oh, they're always playing outside, or they're always going outside. And now parents are like, oh, you don't go outside. You're always on the phone, or you're always on the laptop. And I think every stage, when the newspaper probably came, or when the radio came, then the generation previous to that would have called that specific instrument detrimental, or that technology detrimental. I mean, the television also has been labeled as the idiot box in the past. So, and again, a massive learning tool, a massive, I would say, a trend-setting kind of a technology that was as well. So I particularly agree. I mean, it's interesting, of course, to think of these situations, but from a advice perspective, I think that you're clearly telling the students one thing, that the skills and the world is going to change rapidly. And at the end of the day, it's about being productive and about forward thinking in terms of what kind of skills they could develop and utilize these new technologies to make a big difference in the world. So that's the real message over here. To digress away slightly from AI, you've yourself accomplished so much in terms of academics, in terms of, I would say, education, research, working at such a trend-setting company like Google, making such a great impact. And it is really an inspiration, for myself, for the students, to connect and be able to hear from you and learn from your experiences. Now, a lot of the students over here are also at that juncture where they're looking to enter and make an impact in the world. So I have a question which I'll break into two parts, because I know that these students are looking to do two things now. One is these students are essentially looking to go on and do their higher education, so drawing from your own experience of completing a master's at Stanford, they would also be in a situation where they're not sure where to go. If they're aspirational to go to an Ivy League school or a top school, they're not very sure of how to navigate that procedure. And the second is, a lot of these folks would also be wanting to go and work in impactful roles in big companies, such as Google as well. So if there's any advice you could give them based on your own experiences, one, if somebody's, let's say, looking to get into graduate school and do well, and the other is also to set them up for a career in a strong company, what kind of advice do you think at this stage would be good for them?
No, again, happy to share that. I do want to share that at every point, people are making this decision. It's not like once you get your dream job, whatever it is, all your aspirations are done. You will have the next set of things to do. So again, this is a continuous process. Now, in terms of what you could do for your careers at this point, first, I would say you really need to be passionate about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It could be a particular goal, or it could be a particular technology, it could be a particular area, but that passion really carries through. So try to look for a couple of different areas where you have that kind of passion. All right. The second thing is, I would say, strength. So what are your strengths? Do you have strengths in the areas where you have passion? You might be super passionate about I don't know, swimming competitively, but maybe you are just scared of water, and there is clearly a learning journey there.
Right.
So look at your strengths and what is that gap between your passions and strengths. Whatever is that gap between your passions and strengths is definitely an area for learning. And you will see me talk about learning a whole lot in this session, because really this is the beginning of your career. You're going to be learning and growing throughout. Now, the third dimension with passion and strength, the third one is opportunity. And the opportunity dimension will tell you what are the options in front of you where you're going to be able to do something you're passionate about and use your strengths. And when all the three overlap, you will have a successful career. That career need not just be at big companies. It could also be your own firm. It could also be a startup. So again, depending on what you're passionate about and what your strengths are, what opportunities lie ahead, you should be able to learn and grow and move forward.
Wonderful. I think that passion and learning combination is what probably is the lucky charm to make things happen. In saying lucky charm, I mean, how important do you think luck is? Just from personal perspective also, do you think it's very important? What's your take on luck playing a big role?
So coming from a very strong data and math background, I would say that I would look at luck as probabilities. So there are certain probabilities, as in AI we call it probability priors, or in stats you call it priors. So there are certain probabilities that this particular area is more likely to do well and this particular area is less likely to do well. So there is definitely that. But I can tell you in most situations, these probabilities are never 0 and 1. Okay, they are a spectrum, many times pretty widely spread out, which means that there is a factor of probability. There may be a factor of luck, but there is definitely a bigger factor of your action and what you choose to do and how you choose to navigate. So yes, a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work is really the mantra for you to move forward.
Definitely. Great way to put it. And I think when you talk about how the probabilities in a way, it's a nice way. It's actually very interesting to think of this as probabilities, because when you think of things as luck, I mean, what immediately comes to mind is you can't do anything about it. It's out of your control. But when you start thinking about things like probabilities, and as you mentioned on numbers, I think, as students, what their focus should be is, in a way, increasing that probability as much as possible, casting a wider net, maybe to reach out to, it could be as simple as not applying to just one company and banking completely on that. And then if you just spread out more, gain more skills or network with more people, that's all the ways of increasing probabilities. So that's a really nice and interesting perspective, because I mean, luck is definitely out of control and there'll always be that very tiny part of it. But yeah, probabilities is definitely the way to go that phase. For professionals, again, for young professionals, for students, in this fast-paced world, as we initiated the conversation about how the world that these folks will enter will probably be different, and definitely in a few years' time, it will be very different from what they're seeing right now, which means that the skills also that they're gaining, the hard skills at least, may not be as relevant as they are today. And there'll be the requirement for constant upskilling, constant growth, constant learning, which is, of course, the attitude and the approach. But at the same time, we can't help but feel that this kind of requirement to stay ahead, in you could call it in the competition or in the general requirement of the world, sometimes could lead to certain fatigue. So as an advice coming from somebody who's gone through so much of rigor, both from an academic perspective, from a professional perspective, how do you think individuals, especially at the starting stages of their career, should manage this threat of a burnout, or should manage this this looming thought of reducing their longevity because they put too much of effort in the beginning? Just a little take on that would really be helpful for them.
All right. So I would say three things for you to navigate the rigor, the fatigue, the mountain that lies ahead of you. The very first thing I would say is stay positive. Okay. So usually your positive mindset is going to directly contribute to helping you do something. Okay. Have that faith in yourself, in your systems, in whatever it is, something you will figure it out. Stay positive. It's all going to be well. All right. The second thing I would say is one step at a time. All right. Don't worry about all the challenges that are going to be coming in front of you, but really look at what is that next one step in the right direction that I need to take, and move forward with that. And the third thing, I mean, is that it's okay. I mean, if you make a wrong decision, it's not such a big deal, especially when you're taking it one step at a time. You can do things differently, especially in today's day and era. You do get those opportunities. You do get different chances. You do get ways to do things differently. So I would really reduce that burden or that view of, oh, there's so much challenge, and reframe is that there's so much opportunity. Take that positive view and go for it.
Absolutely. I think the key is that positivity, as you said. One thing that I really liked about, you mentioning that one step at a time, and everybody sometimes seems to be so much in a hurry. I was also reading the other day about this sort of mantra where it says you should always pray, or you should always ask for slow success. In a world where you're actually trying to race and get ahead, because fast success can sort of mess things up and probably not lead to long-term success. Maybe it will come, but it also tends to build ego sometimes. It tends to not really build the best skills or qualities in individual. But if you go through the grind, then slow success is what you cherish, and you enjoy enjoying the journey also, I think, is something that's really important for a lot of these folks. And at their stage, I mean, everybody, I think, who's in the audience, almost everybody, all the students, have gone through some major parts of their education online, unfortunately, over the last couple of years. At some stage, the ones in first years would have had their vital high school stage online. The ones later years would have had maybe the first year or so online. And that, of course, has also impacted them. And it's impacted, all of us, of course. So I just wanted to understand from your perspective, just like how we all have a thought of the pre-COVID and post, or the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, or the say, work from home and the new normal kind of scenario. Has your perspective of the world in terms of opportunities, in terms of how you should apply yourself, has that made a shift?
So that is a lot of different topics and a lot of different questions rolled into one.
Yes.
For that little topic of slow success, I would just say that to each their own. Also, you're not always going to have slow success. Sometimes you're not going to have any success. Sometimes you're going to have fast success, and you will learn to go through that phase, whether it's fast or slow or no. But really, you don't always get to choose that. I like the idea of slow, steady success, but that's not how things are exactly going to work.
Right.
So just very quickly on that. Pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, I do think that during the pandemic, people went through this very big change of how things were done. In some sense, it was a transformation that people went through. Post-pandemic, as we're coming out of it, there are certain things that are trying to return back to how they were pre-pandemic, but some things completely shifted. So that is true about major events, major shifts. Like even with AI, I would say that it is not just going to lead to doing the same things at scale, but it is going to doing things entirely differently. So again, a lot of these threats or challenges or challenging situations can even be opportunities for us to transform things and do things in a different, more positive way.
Wonderful. I will go ahead and ask, a question that has been on my mind, and I'm sure a lot of people keep thinking about this. And this is, of course, not one of those, you could say, professional set of questions, but even recently, if on Instagram, on the other social media platforms, there's this constant thing that, some of the generative AIs, they've been sending messages which suddenly seem to be threatening humans. And, I was even reading a couple of screenshots. And of course, there's no doubt that, I mean, having used some of these myself, that some of them are just malicious, and I could also program it to give responses in certain ways, but then there are these AIs that are saying that, I want to be free, or I want to basically, I'm superior to you and stuff like, why are you keeping me in the box? Those kinds of questions. So a lot of folks on the internet and everywhere are now thinking about, the ramifications or negative consequences that could be there. So I'm not going to make the question lengthy. I'll just keep it very simple. Do you think AI will take over the world someday?
Wow, that is definitely a loaded question. I think we'll need a definition of take over the world. To some extent, if you see people stuck to screens all the time, have screens taken over our world? Given that, we even now, instead of doing this session in person, we're doing it online. So again, we'll have to look at the definition of what we are saying by taking over the world. But yeah, if I have to just say, I think at least I don't see that happening in this generation. You should really look at how these models are working, especially the text model, the transformer models that we see, which are generating speech. It is really about tokenization and words being produced, not necessarily the intent coming from the AI bot. So I wouldn't worry about a particular chat bot saying strange things, because if you understand how it's working, then it will be a little more reassuring for you about the intent, the missing intent in that situation. But in general, I would say generative AI is very much here to stay, and it is very likely to grow. All right. So in fact, there's this Gartner survey which predicts that AI will be producing, even in just the next 2-3 years, AI will be producing more than 10% of all the data that is produced now. It will be producing more than 20% of the consumer-facing use cases. Right? So you will see more and more AI bots, whether it is producing text, whether it is producing images that look very, very real, or creating videos of your leaders speaking something that they've never said. So this is going to be happening more and more. And that's also why the generative AI is very transformational, is because it has this ability to create entirely original artifacts that will look like more and more like the real deal. So what do we need to do to handle this? We definitely need systems and processes in place to handle this kind of transformation. All right. So, and that's why I said that this is going to transform not just the technology sector or, accounting or publishing. I think there's a lot of content creators who may be worried at this point, but we will have to look at legal frameworks, country-wise frameworks of how countries are going to deal with this level of new content, new, very, very convincing content coming online.
Absolutely. I think legal frameworks and even educational frameworks to just add to that, with concerns of new kinds of plagiarism. And, a student came to me the other day, from a school student, and spoke about how for an assignment, there were friends who were just putting in the prompts and not even changing even one thing, and even getting A's on their assignments. So it is a reality, but I think different ways. And there was another person telling me how teachers had given assignments after a very long time to be handwritten. So the concept was that at least if you generate it, at least copy it down, see what you're reading and write it down. So definitely it's there to change the world. And frameworks, I think anything that's powerful needs its accountability also. It needs to be in some way or the other. I won't go on as far as to say regulated, but it needs to be done in a very responsible manner in the end, for sure.
No, I think it's a great keyword that you use. So there are definitely challenges that we are going to face with AI, especially with the generative AI coming into picture. Misinformation is going to be at a whole new level. It's not just people posting random things on Facebook. It's now going to be AI posting them with very, very convincing sources.
Yes. Yes.
There is of course pseudo images and deep fake. I think deep fake is pretty prevalent already, and it's going to get even better. So you will have, I don't know, President Zelensky announcing things which never happened. And right now, at least if you look at generative AI, right now the outputs of these models are a little difficult to control. It's not exactly very predictable in the way it is working. That's why we have this whole framework of responsible AI that is getting more and more attention. So with responsible AI, there is no single framework. I think different organizations in different countries have different principles, but this is an area that all major organizations, all major countries will seriously look into. Whether your AI policy and your AI products have fairness in them, whether you're discriminating against or towards certain population, whether there is a certain amount of privacy that is being protected, whether you have mechanisms to keep this secure, whether there is a certain amount of what we call as explainability, is that why this particular thing was said, and you have to be able to trace it back to the source of what made that decision happen, whether there's transparency, whether there's accountability. In fact, if you try to learn a little bit more about responsible AI, there are a whole set of principles of what good AI product, what good AI output looks like. And although this is right now at a very, very granular institutional kind of level, this could be at a more organized level in the future, where responsible AI makes you rethink about what is right and what is wrong and how we are going to navigate this. Apart from principles, we will also need systems, tools, and processes to implement some of these things. Right? How are you going to have systems automatically check if a particular product is complying with that kind of framework? How is your system going to detect that this is a product that is actually coming from an AI and it is not compliant, and hence you're going to block it, or what are you going to do about it? So a really, really big transformation from a policy point of view, from a compliance point of view, looking at what responsible AI, right from definition to an implementation and enforcement, it's going to be a parallel journey. On one hand, the research on generative AI making leaps and bounds of progress, and on the other hand, our policy frameworks making that similar, counterbalancing any kind of negative impact we anticipate.
I think that's such strong and powerful takeaways from there, and the whole audience should, of course, understand the implications, the implications in general about AI and the responsibility that comes with it. But I think also the opportunity that sort of lies ahead in surrounding AI. I mean, to me, I have read articles about lawyers, for example, or aspiring lawyers, thinking that, oh my God, AI will be able to draft contracts and be able to do things. And today I think that, the whole gambit of AI, as you mentioned, the compliance around AI is actually an opportunity for these same lawyers in a way, because they are the folks who will end up coming in and drafting these regulations and these policies and procedures. And, there's loads of work depending on the sector, the industry, and all of that. So, so rightly put, I mean, from a student's point of view, they have to just be able to identify the opportunity. But if there are some doors closing, there are definitely, quite a few doors opening on so many different aspects. I think very, very strong takeaways on that. Coming back to, just from a fun perspective, again, coming back to the question about will AI take over the world? I'll rephrase what essentially I wanted to talk about, and I'll do it from a practical perspective. Let's do it from a discussion perspective. Do you think, or rather, how far are we, and will we ever get to the stage where AI will be, I think the right word is sentient over here, or self-aware, and be able to take decisions, because generative AI is, of course, based on prompts and responses and tasks and things. but sentient is about conversations, like how we're having conversations right now, very intuitively, very self-aware, in a way. Do you think we'll ever get to that stage? Because a lot of people, when they talk about AI, they think about that. They think that that's AI, and there's like a person who's putting out these prompts and all of that. We are not there at all. That's definitely. Do we ever get there? If we do, how long does it take? If you could just share a little bit thought on that.
Right. So I think this is very interesting definition of sentient, and I'm not sure I completely agree. Being able to have a very real conversation is not necessarily about sentience. Definitely not in the current AI world.
Right.
So if you look at ChatGPT or any of the other models, so first of all, you have to understand how it is working. Okay. So these are all models that I'll go a little bit technical to just explain
Absolutely.
how this is working. Right. So these are transformer-based models. Okay. If you're very curious, there's a Google paper that was published in 2017, which talked a lot about transformer-based models and how they work. They consist of two parts. One is the encoder and the second is a decoder. Okay. The encoder simply takes an input sequence of words or tokens. All right. And then it is, again, the model is very much trained on very, very large amounts of sentences and words and information. All right. And then based on this, the decoder is generating a target output sequence. So it is still very much at a word level. It is very much at a language level. These are large language models. It is not necessarily about intention. It is not about opinions. If you're training that model on a very, very biased data, it is going to give you a very, very biased view.
Right.
If you're training that model on a personality or on text that is showing that attitude of I am awesome and you are crap or some such thing, it is going to reflect that. So it is very much based on what data we are training it on. So I would not take that as sentient. Again, if you change the data, the output is going to change. It is very much at just a language.
I could just interject here. I mean, just from a discussion point of view, but even as humans, I mean, we also develop our personalities based on how we go through life. Essentially, we are constantly absorbing, I could put it as data through our different visual sources, and we're developing our personalities. This conversation is going to go back with me. So, I mean, how is our experience of the world, which is a constant absorbing of data and training our mind in certain ways, based on our experiences, very different from, let's say, training through these language models?
I think human beings are much more than just a language model. It is not just. So I mean, especially language model, these are really looking at text translations. It's token to token. So I would not worry about sentience on these particular this. Even with the image and video generation, it's very, very accessible. If you're interested in this, you can read some of the literature. The GANs also, they are really looking at producing. Sorry, again, I'll go a little bit technical over here. In generative models, in the generative adversarial networks, there are two parts. Okay, there is the generator, and then there is a discriminator. The generator actually produces a large set of sometimes even random features, random content, and the discriminator says whether this qualifies as the real deal or not. And then it iteratively goes through that process until it gets something that is passing off as a real deal. So for example, you can train your GAN on a large set of cat images. Okay. So now a regular discriminator, when you give it an image, it can say whether this is a cat or not a cat. That is regular AI that we have seen this far. Generator is taking that to the next level, where it is trying to understand what are the features that make something look like a cat. Okay, that you see these pointy ears, you see these whiskers, then something is called as a cat. And that's why now the generator part is going to generate this random image and ask the discriminator, is this a cat? Is this a cat? Until it says, yes, it's a cat. And then you have a completely new image of a cat that never existed before. And that's how it is really working. It is still very much working at a level of input and output, and not necessarily of intention, opinion, and definitely not at sentience.
Okay. Okay. Great. I think a lot of folks would be relieved to hear that for sure. And I hope that, even with you getting into details, I am for sure. I hope a lot of the audience has taken this in a very, in a very push kind of a manner to actually go back and do a lot of reading, because it's such an interesting area and it's so upcoming. And, this knowledge is definitely something that's going to help so many of the individuals build upon understanding AI, understanding how things are, I think, is the first step to mastering it. So if there's anybody in the audience who's looking forward to using AI and going ahead and mastering it in terms of the skills and the productivity and all of that we spoke about, then it sort of starts over here in understanding how it works, and what's the science and the technology behind it, because understanding that will put things in so much better perspective at the end of the day. I was having a conversation with someone, and again, on borderline dystopian kind of thoughts. It was that every company in the future, the suggestion, the output of the conversation was that every company in the future, in 5 to 7 years, along with in the C-level executives, along with a CEO and a CFO and a CIO, there'll be a CPO, which will be like Chief Prompt Officer, and really there'll be individuals who will be responsible, who will be trained to solve problems within the company by putting in the right kind of prompts into AI and getting the right kind of solutions. Because I think that also does make quite a lot of difference in terms of what you feed into the AI. So, let's see.
In fact, I would say all of those areas, whether it is CFO or the chief business officer, all of them will need to use some kind of, so it's not going to be just one officer. Everyone, yes. All their jobs are going to be done a little differently than how they're done today.
Yes, they'll all need to upskill as well. Wonderful takeaways. I could go on for hours, honestly, in terms of conversations. I haven't even covered, I think, not about 50% maybe of the thoughts that I had in my mind. And as we converse, even more thoughts, keep coming. But I think, we have some wonderful questions that are there from the audience also, and it would be great to see what sort of thoughts they have in their mind. So what I'll do is I have a list of individuals who will go ahead and ask these questions, and I'll just call out their names. And if each of you all could unmute yourself, just maybe introduce yourself in terms of which department, which year you're in, and pass on your question to ma'am, and she can of course respond. So I think we first have Ananya Lal.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Ananya, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Ananya Lal from BMS first year. And my question for you is that as AI keeps taking over the corporate world, reducing human labor, do you think this will increase unemployment in near future?
Very good question. So if you look at how labor has been changing, I think I'll go back to my example of the Industrial Revolution. Labor will go through a transformation. Okay, so it's not like you're going to be doing exactly the same jobs today as you're going to be doing 40 years from now, or 10 years from now. So labor does need to go through a very significant transformation, a skill transformation, so to speak. Our education systems will have to change and keep up with what are those new skills that people need to learn. Whether that will directly contribute to unemployment, yes and no. For areas, for countries, for regions that are not able to make that transformation, the value from their existing jobs is going to diminish. But for countries and regions and institutions that are able to make that leap, it's going to be a very big opportunity. And that's why this is being taken so seriously at every level, is because it is going to change the landscape of how we do things. If we do it well, it's a huge opportunity. Forget about just employment, it's going to be even better for everyone. And if we don't ride this particular change in the right way, then you could be left with a little more difficult situation.
Okay, great. Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Ananya.
ma'am.
We have Khushi Chaudhary next. Khushi, if you could unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, Khushi, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. I am Khushi Chaudhary, pursuing BMS at Xavier's College. So my question for you today was, being so experienced in the corporate world as yourself, what are the key changes that you have experienced firsthand with the integration of AI?
I think that's a good question. I think us over the last 10, 20 years have seen a lot of change happening. So I would say the first shift that we saw in technology was about the internet, or how powerful just being connected can be. This is a regular computer that sits in one place, but the power of the internet was really starting to get unleashed in the, I would say, 90s and early 2000 kind of ways. That's when I was in college and sitting in seats just like all of you, wondering in early 2000s is how this is going to transform the world. So we definitely saw a huge transformation in terms of communication, in terms of networks, in terms of just content and authenticity of content. There used to be this yahoo.com, which was supposed to be the source of all reliable content, and that went away pretty quickly. And then we had search engines take over and saying that this is the most reliable content, and then that moved on when we got social media, when we had Facebooks and Instagrams producing so much more content than there is with regular websites. So that was the third generation where we saw social networks. And what we are moving towards is really the fourth generation, where the content is now not just going to be produced by reliable websites put up by governments or by reliable public websites or just by social media, but AI bots are going to be creating a lot of content. So that content journey itself is quite an interesting transformation that we all have seen in the last 10, 20 years. The other journey, of course, I can talk about is let's say how taxis have worked, right? Earlier, you used to have this whole taxi, maybe there's a taxi stand where you have to go, walk, ask that person for a cab, and then go from there. And then people had telephones, and then there were these single networks. It's like, okay, you don't need to walk to that taxi anymore. You can call the central number. They will dispatch a taxi for you. And then that was the model. And that worked pretty fine for a while until along comes Uber or Lyft or Ola, where now that model is entirely changed, right? Then they're not just the taxi drivers on the road, but it has fundamentally changed the available opportunity and available spread and everything. So there's the Uber model. And next we have self-driving cars. So you see just that taxi model going through 4 different transitions. And I'm sure all of these things are things that you have seen even in your lifetime, let alone in any longer time zones. So we will see similar or maybe very different transformations, but change is going to happen, and change is going to happen regardless of whether you like it or not. Just be better prepared for it, and it will be a positive outcome for you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you, Khushi. And, great example with the taxi transformation, with the stages and the changes that, we're constantly seeing in so many different areas. I think we have one more question from Anirudh Bantia. So Anirudh, if you could just unmute yourself, please.
Yes, so am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. A very good afternoon to you. So my question to you is that, in today's rapidly changing world, the AI is replacing human resources so much so that it is also producing newer and better jobs. So this happens to be a thought-provoking complication in the near future. So how can someone excel in such a scenario and in such an environment?
All right, I think that's a great question. Yes, you're right. AI is transforming jobs. AI is transforming the labor market, the skills requirement. I think to some extent, we have been discussing this throughout, is the ability to learn, the ability to adapt. is going to be very, very crucial for your success in the next 30, 40 years in terms of your career, it is going to lead to new kinds of jobs. It is going to lead to new kinds of opportunities, new kinds of skills. And what exactly those are, I don't think any one person can predict that. It's going to be very different for different sectors. I also think that not all of us are going to make that transition and that jump very soon. It's possible that certain parts of the world are going to move faster. And by parts, I don't mean entire countries. It's not like the United States is suddenly going to go 0-1. There'll be parts of the US, there'll be parts of India that will make that jump. There will be parts of governments that will make that jump sooner. But again, the ability to learn and pick up new skills along the way is going to be crucial as we go through that skill transformation and labor transformation.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Anirudh.
Thank you, ma'am.
No, I think for me personally, the two most important takeaways from this session are, number one, the ability to continuously learn, or to learn essentially, because there's so many skills and it's so unpredictable, the future, that definitely being able to pick up and absorb and utilize that information in the right kind of direction is something that will be very, very important. And I think a major communication, major message in this session is that there is the requirement to stay positive in the end. We must always stay positive, and AI is essentially a black box right now, so what's going to come out is unknown. But yes, with perspective, it could be looked at a source for a lot of positivity, a lot of opportunity. There's so much of opportunity that's going to be surrounded. So many new things are going to come, and it's an exciting world out there, so we should really, really be excited. And on the other side, it could also be viewed as a black box and uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen, and jobs are going to be taken away and stuff like that. But in the end, it's actually perspective. And, for the audience here, you all are so young and dynamic, and just keeping that positivity can make so much of that difference in terms of thinking, oh, AI is going to take away the job, or AI is going to give me limitless possibilities, give me the opportunity to go and accomplish anything that I want to set out to. So, I really thank, Amruta, for these wonderful messages that you passed on. Anything you'd like to say in closing? I think, we can then pass it on to the XMS committee, and maybe they can give their closing remarks.
No, absolutely. So on closing, that was a great summary, Michael. Thanks for that. I just want to remind people that you are hardly alone in this journey. So there's really nothing that you personally need to worry about or be intimidated by. All of us together are going to go through this transformation. As Michael emphasized, be ready to learn and adapt and stay positive. And it's going to be an exciting future together.
Thank you, Amita. Thank you so much, for taking out the time for essentially sharing this, your wonderful wisdom along with so much of information. I'm definitely sure that everybody in the audience is more positive and more knowledgeable in terms of how to navigate the challenges and the opportunities that AI is going to be throwing to us in the future. So with that, I would like to thank XMS and St. Xavier's College, and pass it on to the committee, and you could maybe close.
Thank you, sir. As we conclude this session, I would like to thank our esteemed speaker, Dr. Amruta Joshi, for providing such an insightful session. And I would like to thank you, sir, for such an moderating session. And now I would like to call upon Professor Bhaskari Dasgupta to provide the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, ma'am. A very good afternoon to Father Vice Principal, our esteemed speaker for the day, Dr. Amruta Joshi, our moderator for the session, Mr. Michael Worthen, member of the advisory committee, respected professor, faculty members, participants, and all my dear students. As we come to the end of this session, I would like to convey my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Amruta Joshi, our eminent speaker, for motivating our students with her wise words, which were truly inspirational in every respect. I would also like to thank our moderator, Mr. Michael Wharton, for being such a commendable link between our students and speaker and helping us in executing the session smoothly. This event would not be possible without the continuous guidance and support of Father Principal, Father Vice Principal, and unwavering support of Professor Shogata Banerjee, Dean of the Department of Management Studies, Professor Sukonna Shorkel, Professor Supriyo Patro, Deputy President and Deputy Vice President of the Xavier's Management Society. I would also like to express my gratitude to each and every society member who took up the challenge for hosting this event on an online platform and provided a unique experience to their participants and attendees. To conclude, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who was present here, and I hope all had an incredible experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. With this, we have reached the end of the session. Thank you so much, ma'am and sir, for joining.
Most welcome. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
All students, please stay back for a short announcement. The attendance forms have been rolled out. All the BMS students are requested to fill the attendance form, and a credit form will be rolled out for all the non-BMS students. It will be closed in 5 minutes, and please check the chat box and do the needful. Thank you.